West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Mashal St. Patrick Hewitt, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santoki Nagilendran. Santoki, how you doing?
Yeah, all good, Mash. It's been a weekend of mixed emotions for us here at the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Obviously, we bleed maroon and follow cricket, but keen viewers will know we're big football fans. It was a momentous weekend for all my Guyanese people. The Golden Jaguars with a 3-2 win over big Guatemala, Isaiah Jones hat-trick. And Mash is over there sweating, shaking away, nervous because Jamaica had to salvage a 1-1 draw against Vinci Heat. You know, Windward Islands are back. Mash, you celebrated that equaliser from Leon Bailey like you qualified for the World Cup, Mash. It's getting tense ahead of the second leg. So, you know,
listen, if Reggae Boys don't pull off the win at Sabina this week, they can never play in Jamaica ever again, you know.
But Mash, it's only right, you know, we start talking about football, cricket, because our guest on today, you know, if you follow sports in the Caribbean, you'll know his name. He's been involved in football, cricket, all types of sports. But we're here to, you know, have a quick chat with him following his new role, you know, a massive role for West Indies cricket. Who we got on today, Mash?
We have indeed got on Chris Dehring, the new CEO of Cricket West Indies. And when we announced that Chris was coming on the show, obviously, as ever, tons of questions flew in. I don't even know, Santa. I was about to say it's one of the many unenviable tasks to be head of like a sport that has so many kind of so much importance across the region. And knowing Chris as I do, he would only have ever taken that job on if he believed he could make a serious mark and impact on the particular on that particular role. So very excited to bring him on. Very excited to talk about his vision, the wider Cricket West Indies plans, but also how he sees the role of CEO in an ever-changing cricket landscape. So yeah, without any further ado, Santoki, let's bring Chris onto the show and let's get going. Chris, good afternoon. I was about to say good evening. It's of course evening in the UK, but good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Mashal, Santoki. Good to see you guys.
Absolute pleasure, Chris.
Good. All right, let's get straight into it, Chris. So you took over as CEO on 1st of February. As Mash alluded to their unenviable job, some would say. Some might say poison chalice job of being West Indies cricket CEO in the current state of modern cricket, how everything seems to always be changing. You've been in the role now 5-6 weeks. How have you found it generally coming into the role? What's it been like? What have been the positives and what have you seen as immediate challenges?
Well, the immediate reaction that my taking on the role brought, actually it was very encouraging because it showed just how much Caribbean people still care about this wonderful institution we call West Indies cricket. You know, coming into Antigua, it was very emotional for me, actually, much more emotional than I thought it was going to be, coming back here to Antigua, to the headquarters. You know, because you recall just what, you know, it's a very stressful job, of course. But the beauty about working in sports, it's almost irreplaceable, that emotional tie, that emotional drive, the passion. You yourself just spoke about it, watching Guyana play Guatemala. How could you describe it to anybody, the kind of emotional and passion that can be generated by working in something that you love? And West Indies cricket as an institution is something that we all love. So, you know, in a sense that I'm very privileged to be given the opportunity, but coming back into Antigua and seeing what has been built since I was last here, I can tell you it's certainly a different board, a different organization. Back then when I would have joined, I had joined to set up and create a commercial operation. So it was a very scanty organization, maybe 4 or 5 people. Now we have an organization, team, and offices, young professionals of over 60 people. And when you add in the contractors and so on, it's over 100 people. So it's a much more robust organization. A lot of the policies and principles that had to be put in place from scratch then, they're pretty much part and parcel of the day-to-day organizational function today. So what I would say is that I've been given a very good wicket to bat on. a much better wicket than I would have thought. And truthfully, I would have probably been one of the more informed fans over the last few years. And I didn't know Cricket West Indies had set up such an operation, the type of people that were involved. And I think that's one of my first things, is to kind of assure the leaders of the region, the sponsors of the region, that this is an organization that is not the, shall we say, for want of a better word, party shop that a lot of people think. We have that saying in the Caribbean, it's like party shop or a roti shop. It's not. It's actually quite a professional organization. I can tell you, even the onboarding process for me was on par with anyone that I've ever received, and I've worked with some of the biggest names in the corporate world. And so you understand that they've taken the role seriously to manage this thing called West Indies cricket. My immediate goal has got to be understanding exactly what we have on the ground in every country. It's no sense I come in with grandiose plans without understanding what is there on the ground, the kind of plans that they already have in place. And I've learned quite a bit in the 5 or 6 weeks that I've been here in terms of plans that have been in place. In fact, it's very gratifying when you actually and validating when you say, hey, I want to do this, and they say, well, great, we have this project that we've been working on. I said, well, fantastic, let's go. Then how do I help you push that along? So it's very validating to know that some of the things that I'm seeing from the outside, they've already seen and are working on. But my job, how I see it, is twofold. One, to be the sort of force field to allow the people in here who have been working on different things to allow them to get pushed through across the Caribbean what we need to get done. But secondly, my focus has got to be on the process, retooling our process of how we are going to provide professional cricketers, looking at all the tools and weapons I have at my disposal and rearranging them in the manner that we need, seeing where the gaps are, filling those gaps. And so it's not a question just of looking on ticking a box to say, hey, we have a regional 4-day competition. How can I get that regional 4-day operating at maximum optimization to create the best cricketer possible? If there's a gap at the under 17 level, it's not just a question of starting an under 17 type tournament or so. It's how can I include in my process the whole professional system that is already there, so that under 17 person cricketer is not lost and feels that there is a career path for them as a professional. So it's really retooling the entire process that creates a West Indian cricketer. The reality is that the massive commercial gap that has taken place at international level, and I've always said you can correlate the decline of West Indies cricket with the introduction of and growth of broadcast rights. West Indies cricket was getting zero from its domestic broadcast rights sale, while England was getting 250 million. So if you just extrapolate that over 10 years, one person has 2.5 billion to pump into their cricket, and one country has zero. So what do you think is going to happen in terms of the quality of cricketers that you're producing vis-a-vis your competition? And so, I've always said that my focus has got to be to retool the process all the way from, maybe even starting the process earlier. We've got to identify the 6-year-olds and the 7-year-olds that are potential athletes and pull them into your production pipeline. One of the things when you look at women's cricket, in for instance, Jamaica produces an inordinate amount of athletic talent, an incredible amount of athletic talent. That probably would be similar in all the other islands, except for Jamaica has this thing called Champs, which is the annual track and field high school. And I tell people, at under 14 level, those girls that are running in the final, all of them will be running times that would probably be the national record in 70% of the world's countries. That's an inordinate amount of athletic talent. Now, all of them won't go on to be Shelley-Ann Fraser and Elaine Thompson. We need to pull some of those athletes into our production pipeline at young ages, so that we can hone them, push them through a properly functioning production pipeline, so that at the end of the day, we are simply plucking off the best of these as West Indies cricket. That's how all professional sports run. The English FA does not have to spend a cent to produce Miles Lewis Skelly. That was done by Arsenal from he was 8 years old in a professional club system, and then the English FA just plucks him off at the end and say, "Hey, this is my left back." So we have to retool, and basically, the other day, my own alma mater, my high school, won the under 16 national championships in Jamaica. And when I drove by the school, I realized that they're practicing in the same nets, in the same manner that I would have practiced 50 years ago. There's no professional athlete produced today with a production pipeline the same way that they would have been produced 50 years ago. No, in any sport. And so we need to make sure there are lots of things that have been done by Cricket West Indies. There's no question about it. What we have to do is to fine tune and improve those aspects of the production pipeline that are in place, and then fill in the gaps with those things that are not in place.
Chris, you've given so much there already that as you were talking, I was like, boy, which angle do I go down? Because you give me about 7 different angles I could go down. But you know where I'm going to start? I'm going to start with, because you made mention of your experience of having worked in the corporate world. Obviously, you've got commercial experience in the past as well, 2007 World Cup, but to name many things, right? How much of a role, and how do you even facilitate the corporate world in the Caribbean? I want to say reinvesting back into the cricket in the region. So like I say, you and I are both Jamaican, so to take Jamaica as an example, and what I say next could be extrapolated across to every single nation in the region potentially, right? Let's say you want to start a kiddie cricket program, a prep school program, something like that. Generally speaking, you need corporate sponsorship. Is that something you've identified that more has to be done there? Is that something that's on your agenda?
Absolutely, but how you approach corporate Caribbean is no different from how you approach corporates around the world. One of the challenges we have in the Caribbean is that there's no sports industry, and so people often confuse sponsorship with donation. And of course, then they're so far apart. We actually have a very strong commercial operation now, in the sense that we've hired a corporate commercial manager, a director of commerce that is running things, Rupert, who came on board just late last year. He is building out his team. They've already started to go and do presentations to various corporates around the Caribbean. And essentially, we are a platform. So, and that's one of the things you have to almost emotionally divorce yourself as a fan of West Indies cricket from the platform that is West Indies cricket, the commercial platform. And we offer that platform to our commercial partners, whether or not the company wishes to grow their brand. If it's a brand that is, say, a fledgling brand that nobody knows about in the Caribbean, I guarantee if you become a sponsor of West Indies cricket, you will become a much better known brand. And we have to put in place the data management tools to collect that. As a Jamaican, you'll appreciate this. We just have this West Indies Championship, for instance, which is going on. And I'll be honest, I'm on various sports chats with my friends back in Jamaica. Nobody has watched a single game because we stream now all of these matches. And it's a little despondent because you feel the people around you, hey, nobody's watching it. Then we got the data of the streams coming, the impact of the streams. And the data is there to show, wow, in fact, on average, over 800,000 video views a match for the first 3 rounds of the tournament. First of all, that alone as a fact kind of blew me away, because if you are immediate social surroundings aren't interested in watching. You kind of get the feeling that nobody is, but that's not true. Clearly, there's a sign of life. There's a pulse there somewhere. And in fact, the country that had the biggest number of views was Jamaica,
Mm.
which should flow because Jamaica is the largest population and so on. But you're not thinking that this data is in place. We now have to package the data, show the kind of data that we are able to deliver for a corporate sponsor to help to grow their brand, help to grow their business. We have to get to understand their business model and their business needs. That's how sponsorship is negotiated, not by going to people to beg money. We're not begging donations. We offer a service. Nike didn't beg, or Tiger wasn't begging Nike for support. You know, Nike wanted to grow their brand.
Yeah.
So we got, also speaking along those lines, we've got the breakout league that's been announced, the T20 breakout league, which kind of points to what you're saying about filling the gaps, because we've seen in the region, unless you get a CPL deal where the spaces are limited, you're not playing T20 cricket. You're not kind of developing that aspect of the game. And there's a large cohort of players in the mid to early 20s who are missing out on T20 cricket. I noticed obviously it's working in affiliation with CPL. Sort of from a Cricket West Indies perspective, how much investment was needed for that? And in terms of marketing, what are sort of the plans for marketing that out to the region to make it an event that people want to watch?
Well, it's a significant investment, I can tell you, as a portion of our annual budget. It is significant. This is the first year. We're going to try and use it to fine tune. So you see where we brought in innovations like making sure every team has to have a leg spin, a wrist spin, because we know that's one of the things that as an asset we need. But generally, the CPL, I consider that one of our assets for retooling. And so the next step is, okay, how do we create that underlayer of assets for the CPL? And then has to be a follow-on. How do we create the underlayer of the breakout for the breakout? So you can see the sort of building blocks that we're going to put in place. But of course, we have to make sure that the quality is there and make sure that we market it so that it becomes successfully in and of itself a commercial product that at least pays for itself. So we don't have to be reinvesting every year from our coffers. CPL is also investing in it. So it is a joint venture. And use that for that developmental process as you know, it's very obvious. It's not rocket science. You know what needs to be done is just how do we get all of these building blocks in place, then fine tuning that building block. Hey, we might end up trying to find somebody who can bowl 55 miles an hour consistent, or 55 kph consistently, and so on. Because this with the breakout, it gives you a lot more flexibility to be able to tailor it more for developmental needs versus CPL, which is going to be straight competition. People want to win type thing. And I know people are going to want to win at the breakout level because that's all Caribbean nationals and so on. But we can tinker with it a bit to sort of make it a much more developmental type project.
Chris, I know in the first few weeks you've been traveling the region, as obviously based in Antigua, but traveling the region, trying to get a kind of feel and sense for cricket across the region. What are some of the main similarities that you've picked up? Because it can be easy to get insulated within your own immediate cricket environs, right? Whether that be a Jamaica or a Barbados, Leewards, Windwards, etc., and not really see what's going on elsewhere. So what have you picked up on as are some of the similar challenges, I suppose, but also some of the areas where there's huge potential to almost mine and unpick further?
So the biggest issue, bar none, and this is number one, which I think people tend to, I guess it's a deny. You want to, it's so big as an issue. You almost don't want to look at it. It's so scary as an elephant. And that's resources. At the end of the day, that is the core fundamental challenge facing West Indies cricket. As a small island state, made up of small island states mainly, apart from Guyana, but still, you know, not all of us can discover oil. and it's a challenge. That is the fundamental challenge. But one of the core things that goes across all the territories is just each country has this just inordinate high athletic quotient. There's something about however the people of the Caribbean were comprised of throughout history, it has left us with this abundant stock of high athletic quotient. And everybody notices it. From 5 and 6 years old all the way through the age groups, you see this high athletic quotient across a number of sports. There's a reason why the English football team was once little bit all people of Jamaican and Caribbean heritage, you know, and the England cricket team is now trying to poach as many Caribbean people as they can. But and you see it with our track and field, Julian, Alfred, and so on in St. Lucia, or you know the Jamaican history in track and field. So that speaks something that we have, and it's across the board. There's a reason why maybe even a St. Vincent can challenge Jamaica in football, which was, yeah, I was one of those on edge to Santo. So, but you look on the level of athleticism playing for St. Vincent, and there was very little difference between those people and all of our pros that are playing Premier League in England. In terms of just athletic ability on the field. Yes, maybe coordination and certain technical skills they probably work, but you know, you can see it. And so we have to try and make sure that we optimize that. And so I have to work with each territorial board to see how we generate both commercial and national resources. National resources is one that we've taken for granted because cricket is cricket, it's West Indies cricket. You think they're going to get national support. But one of the most important national resources you can have is national pride, because that then helps to generate so much else. And therefore, one of the things we're going to be looking at is how can we help to generate, those territorial boards help to generate national pride, which then helps to get more government support, etc., etc. And we've identified, for instance, the Olympic Games and that process of elimination, trying to utilize that to help to grow this national pride and national resources. And when I mean national pride and national resource, I give you an example. When Jamaica plays Trinidad in the Shell Caribbean Cup, remember that old competition?
Yeah.
It's a man and a dog in the stadium. There's no consequence, really. You want to win, but okay. When Jamaica plays Trinidad in a World Cup qualifier, the stadium is jam-packed, resources are generated, pride comes out, you can't afford to lose to Trinidad, and so on. Now, it used to happen in the Shell Shield or the Red Stripe Cup. A match between Barbados and Trinidad was like a test match.
Yeah.
Because it meant so much to win the regional tournament. But the reality with way global sports has evolved, you need something that's of an international nature, televised globally, your brand paraded across the world, before you can really truly generate national pride. And in the Olympics, we are going to play as individual countries. Under the auspices of Cricket West Indies, we need to keep control of it. But at the end of the day, it would help maybe give individual countries incentive to invest a bit more. You know, if Guyana is going to play St. Vincent in an Olympic qualifier, it might mean a little bit more than Guyana playing the Leewards, for instance, in regional cricket. So we have to find ways to take advantage of the fact that, hey, the Olympics is coming. A qualification process has got to be developed. And maybe we can use that qualification process to help fuel individual country investment for national resources.
So far, you've talked about sort of finances at a regional level. In terms of on a global level, we've often heard from your predecessor, Johnny Grave, about, West Indies' perilous financial conditions and the kind of environment where you're reliant on a tour by India or England to sort of sustain money. how do you get around that sort of financial position? I like the word you used before, innovation. Is it a case of using innovation, or do we essentially need the ICC or World Cricket to come up with a more equitable distribution?
World Cricket has got to solve that issue. And World Cricket, by World Cricket, you really mean, with all due respect to everybody, you're talking England, Australia, and India. The reality is that the financial playing field has not been level for a very long time. Everybody has recognized that, but nobody wants to do anything about it. But I think you must be getting to a point where it's just too obvious to everybody. People are talking. You create a World Test Championship, and you end up playing a West Indies versus Sri Lanka, and both West Indies and Sri Lanka struggle to be able to pay for that series. But at the end of the day, India's command, in the 70s and 80s, when West Indies ruled the roost, the differential between ourselves and England and India was probably 10 or 20 million US a year. That's how small it was. So our athletic ability easily overcame that. By the time I joined the cricket board, it was probably 200 or 300 million US a year. Today, the gap with India is probably 3 billion if you look at all of the kind of resources that pour into Indian cricket. It's probably about 3 billion. Now, which league could survive with one country or getting so much, or if you add in England into the mix and sort of, they probably are 95% of the world's revenue, cricket revenue. So which league could survive on that basis? So if you really truly want to do something about the declining fortunes and viewership of international test cricket and bilateral test cricket, you've got to do something about the funding of it, so that there are more interesting leagues and matches and so on. So it's going to be a question of lobbying and trying again to present. I had the misfortune of being involved in the very first time they were changing the financial formula. And back then, West Indies was the only country who could command a very high, basically an appearance fee. If you wanted us to tour your country, you paid us money. So England would pay us, India would pay us some big money to tour them. And that's because everybody wanted to play against the world champions, the best team in the world, or one of the best teams in the world still at that point. The countries voted 9-1 to change it so that no matter where a test match was played, it was worth $75,000. That's all. And we were the only ones that got caught in that vote, because we were the only ones that commanded a high international fee. And so the Zimbabweans and of this world and Bangladesh, they all just want to play test cricket. So it didn't matter to them how much money you're going to pay me. As long as you played me, I'm happy to take whatever. And so we got caught in that bias, got voted 9-1. My next ICC meeting, which is my first ICC meeting, is next month in Zimbabwe. So I'll be going down there to understand where they are with that. I know there's been a lot of debate and different formulas and different ideas put forward, including the whole two-division type scenario, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Although my immediate first reaction when I hear it is it's insulting, because you're coming from the football, as a football fan, if you tell me Arsenal was ever going to be relegated, it would be the worst thing in the world. But in a cricketing context, it may not be that bad if it's done the right way. It's done in a way that can incentivize the teams and so on. So, hey, let's hear what the ICC membership has to say, and we will certainly have our voice and hopefully garner some of the support that we need from other countries who are in the same boat.
Well, sorry, just to jump in there, I am a Tottenham fan, so Arsenal being relegated wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me. But I'll hand over to Matt.
Listen, Chris.
Who do you support?
Stop them. Listen, Chris, leave him.
No, Marshall, what I would say, and it's nothing personal. I have a policy. I don't really discuss football with anybody whose team is not in the top 10. So it's just a nothing personal, Santok. It's just a professional policy.
Listen, Chris, we know that we always knew this was going to be a very quick episode, and you've given us some real rich information. But just before you go, because I know it was something that was sent in to us from different people who wanted us to ask. And it's a bit, is it? No, it's not loaded, but it will feel like it is because of obviously we're presenting this from London. Chris, it's always baffled me that we've never made overtures within the Caribbean for the West Indian or Caribbean diaspora. In the same way how England seem to find it very easy and straightforward to try and reach the tentacles as far as they can go. We don't seem to do it the other way around. Has that been something I'm not even talking about in your role as CEO. I'm just talking in general. Has that ever been something that you've thought about or might think about in terms of expanding our talent pool that way?
That's an interesting one. The reality, I've never really thought about it from a talent pool perspective, but that's an interesting proposition. Possibly, even if I was to say, hey, let's look at that, I can well imagine the response from, we have created just so many legends, why would we need to look outward? But look, I come from the perspective always that you'll never criticize me for doing nothing. And certainly we're going to be trying things and pushing the envelope, and you can criticize that, what we try. And so you've given me an idea. It's the first I've actually heard it from a talent perspective. So that's an interesting proposition. From a financing, from a marketing, from a trying to grow the brand and so on, absolutely, that's a big part of our push. In fact,
that was my second part. The kind of not even remittance, but you know what I mean, in terms of there is, to me and Santoki, there's always been an untapped resource market, which is the diaspora in the United States, in North Canada, that's the three big markets: the United States, Canada, UK. There's a big, huge diaspora who still care passionately.
Absolutely. And we have plans, and in fact, it's one of the first things on your commercial director identified, because you have to, the Caribbean is only 5 million people. So we need to tap into the 10 million people that's outside the Caribbean. And interestingly, when I've been looking at some of the data, we have so many non-Caribbean diaspora people that follow all of our tournaments. I didn't realize that myself, in terms of India and United States, Indians in the United States, Sri Lankans in the United States who follow West Indies cricket. We're still, I think, everybody's second favorite team. You support your home team, but you also then, hey, you have a good feeling about West Indies cricket. And in fact, that's one of the things that we were able to get away with so long at the ICC, our position. We were Switzerland. We were liked. We were never disliked by anybody. We didn't have arguments with anybody. In fact, people wanted you on their side because they felt we were always fair and we would always do what was in the best interest of the sport and so on. So you're right. We have to find a way to make sure the West Indies cricket brand reaches out to our Caribbean diaspora. But as I said, it goes even beyond the Caribbean diaspora. I can tell you this year, there's a reason why we were looking at playing Pakistan to some T20s against Pakistan in Broward County, in the heart of Caribbean country in Florida, for that very reason. So, we have to try and utilize our expertise and our data that we have to reach all these people in the Caribbean, garner that data, garner more registrations of Caribbean fans, listen to them, because it's easy to have your own idea of how to reach them, but they know how they want to be reached, and try and develop that wider West Indian cricket community, which is wider than just simply the West Indies.
Chris, we know you've oppressed for time, so thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to throw you a bouncer for the last question. Of all the places in the world, I'm going to say world, where has been your favorite place to watch cricket? And you can't say Sabina Park because it's your home ground.
No, and I would never say Sabina Park. the place, I'm being brutally frank. My favorite place to watch cricket, and it's back in the day. It was the experience that made me fall in love with cricket. Was Antigua at the ARG. The first time it was the 1 week of vacation I would take every year. I was working in banking, but I'd take this 1 week to come to Antigua cricket. And I wish there was a way to reward Antigua and the person that started it. Because I always tell people, world cricket owes us an incredible debt of gratitude. Limited overs cricket started because they wanted everybody to try and play the way the West Indies played Test cricket. Right? Which was why we won the first 2 World Cups so easily. We weren't doing anything unusual. We were playing normal cricket. That's how we played cricket. And so they created limited overs, including the T20, because that form of cricket everybody loved. But just as importantly, the way we celebrated the game off the field with music and partying and that's what has spawned T20 and made it such a fantastic product. And the person that started it was right here in Antigua, a DJ called Chicky, who fought the establishment. Believe me, the establishment was totally against it, all across the Caribbean and at international level, against this music because they felt it interrupted the game. Well, there was a game here in Antigua where I think everybody finally realized the importance of the way we celebrated the game. It was West Indies, India. You can check the records. West Indies, India. I think it was I can't remember the year, but I think it's 1997. The first 3 days of the test match was totally rained out. Not a ball was bowled. But the players had to stay there because you didn't know whether they'd get in any play. And more importantly, Chicky played. And the double-decker stand was packed every single day. People were buying tickets 5 o'clock in the evening, knowing not a ball was going to be bowled. And that's when and of course the players are there being entertained too. And the 2 captains, Tendulkar and Walsh, determined that the man of the match was Chicky, the DJ.
Well, Chris, that only leaves me to say one thing. When Australia come to Sabina for the test match, tell Beanie Man, Bounty Killer, Mavada, tell them all to do a concert during the match. and surely we can pull off a victory.
we have found a way to inculcate and really blend our culture and our cricket. That's what makes us special.
Listen, Chris, thank you so much. As Santoki says, that's a perfect answer to end the show on. Thank you so much. And obviously, go well in the role. We invite you back on in the future to give us an update as and when. And hopefully we will bump into you in the near future face to face as well. But thank you so much for coming on the show, Chris, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. And Santoki, I'll be passing through London on the 8th, where we have a Champions League game against Real Madrid. So you let me know when Spurs play the next Champions League game.
Take care, Chris. I'll see you later, Chris.
Take care, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was Chris Dehring, people, the CEO of Cricket West Indies. And that's been another episode of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We should have done the admin at the start, but we'll do it to end the show. Listen, if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, as ever, it's been on the ticker tape at the bottom for the whole show, www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps and counts to doing what we do like this, putting the shows together, getting the reels, getting the shorts, paying people for articles, website upgrade, all of that stuff, merchandise, everything. So any little bit helps and counts towards that if you can find any pennies in your pockets, etc. But more importantly of all, on the way out, if you haven't already done so, like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. The algorithms always help in that regard. And you can find us on all social media handles. Just type Caribbean Cricket Podcast into Google and you can find us anywhere. Santoki, last words to you.
Yeah, as always, thank you for everyone that supported us. Also, as well, if you sponsorship or any business inquiries, caribcricket@gmail.com is our email address. Feel free to drop us an email as well. Thank you as ever. We promised at the beginning of 2025 we'd be getting regular guests on, upping the content, and we hope we've lived up to your expectations so far. So keep locked. We'll have more guests, more exciting ideas, more exciting episodes coming very, very soon. So we'll see you on the other side.
West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.